let me break down 20 minutes of solid and sharp writing advice that you will use for the rest of your lifetime. When we consider writing, we view this as this hard technique. You have to physically push your mind towards it and to start creating an idea. It's often negotiated with certain words like performative, gay, or hell, just some negative aspect that I don't vibe with. Coming as a male 16-year-old writer, many people value what I do, but then there's a vocal minority that sees writing as this weak, kind of feminine thing. That may be true in some regards, but when I consider history, it's not about the diaries we read about from teenage girls or something weirder like that. No, history is recorded through the writing of the rich minds, the rich men and women who are able to value their words. And it's not talking about literally rich, but just have a mindset of success that many of us don't often go towards. It's because of that I see writing as this level of technique that needs to be studied, because when we look at the average person, do they ever write past high school? No. And some might say, well, what about taxes? Or what about these small work habits? Those are fine on its own. But writing itself and the right to write is one of the best things you could have as a human being. Let's talk about how you can implement writing in everyday life. I have been journaling for the past, let's say, 4 months. It's not the same as journaling in my past. However, I have been improving on writing in so many different ways through this one notebook. I feel kind of pretentious bringing this notebook up in every single one of my videos, but with how important it is to jot down ideas from goals to lessons I've learned to even just what I've seen in the day itself, it made me realize just why I love writing in the first place. If I were to be a millionaire, like in a snap, there is one task that I will never stop doing, and it is picking up a pen and writing a word. Then right after that, it's a sentence, then a phrase, and even a paragraph and a page. This idea of improving our words is what writing is built around, the foundation of why we have to use it in everyday life. The most successful historians or people remembered in history jotted their ideas down through little words or little phrases. It's so visceral to imagine, but when we picture the thoughts of the present, the greatest people known in mankind, we have to understand that they wrote it down all on paper. And I want to be remembered in a similar light, something up to those same levels, because of the hard work I put in each and every day to improve my writing is what made me desire this path in the first place. Let me break down what I do for my writing. It's not just journaling by itself about the days, but it's also doing the hard work, the real dinner of sorts, and that is to work on a book. This is pretty obvious when we think about writing because it's such a huge aspect. I often combine writing with reading. While we understand that reading and writing are totally different areas, the books we do write and the stories we tell are important with our everyday lives. We document them by telling it to others. We communicate them through the words we are saying. And by that notion, that's all we remember people as, the words we tell them. Which is why I want you to think about writing like this. Imagine a conversation many years from now. It's one that you probably don't think about, but it's one that will change your life forever. Maybe it's later in this video, or maybe it's years down the line. Either way, what we remember are the words and the knowledge we get out of someone's perspective. And that perspective comes through introspection. Introspection is one of my favorite terms of all time because it has so much value and depth to it that it makes me sound more mature, as suffice to say. By looking deep into our minds, introspection for that matter, we learn a little bit about ourselves. How much time do you spend just sitting with your own thoughts? Many of you come to this video as avid writers, which is beautiful to start with. But I could say all those glamorous things, but you have to accept the truth. The truth is that you still do certain habits you're not entirely proud of. You scroll too much, you eat junk food, you watch adult videos, and so on. With that in mind, I want you to consider how writing, the act of writing itself, will make you better. Some of you want to be authors similar to me, but you also want to build success on stories, to build art of some kind that often is pushed away because it's gay or feminine. But in all honesty, like the example I said about the historians, it's one of the most masculine things you can do because of the effort you're putting into it. Think about the lessons you learned, those conversations now or years down the line. You will have something to say back. That's why it's a conversation. But sometimes you don't get to say that to someone else. You don't get to say that to a person you care about or desire. So that's where the pages come in. Write down, whether in a journal, a notebook, a spiral notebook, or hell, just a blank sheet of paper, write down what you're feeling. Write the experience you have at the moment. What are you getting out of this video? And what are you getting out of me randomly blabbering about words and phrases and shit? It's all about how we can perceive things. And when we view our knowledge, the stronger we get at understanding ourselves. Why should we understand ourselves when looking at everyday life? Well, to simply put, our success is based on how much effort we put in each and every day. It's like currency. Your words are currency to how much time and effort you're spending. This 20-minute video will be one that will be important to you, but will also challenge your beliefs based on whatever kind of information you're taking away from this. You can use my value of writing, whether in the case of just going to the gym or schoolwork or hell, just going out to nature. Whatever the case is, writing puts you above the average, the 50%, I'd say, because this amount of people don't care about writing. Let's be honest here. These people are similar to you, sometimes too avid on scrolling, posting random Instagram reels they don't care about or ideas that don't prosper anywhere. These stories are all in the 50%, and everyone has a story to tell. But you yourself, by taking this action to write down some sort of experience, puts you above here, which is impressive by itself. You're improving your life and you're situating yourself in a place where you can just breathe and find peace. We all have our own struggles and we want to document this in more than one way. If that wasn't the case, then what the hell are we doing on this rock? Why are we doing the things we don't often desire? I think about this question a lot because the value of art is one that I am so torn on. One half of my brain is so business focused, the success, the drive to get things done. But the other is the value. What do we get out of different perspectives and why should that matter? It feels like a sort of peasantry kind of mindset, but I'm telling you, by understanding both, you become a winner. The rich write the stories, as I said, whether you are physically, mentally, or status-wise rich. And to tell that is to live a rich and fulfilling life through the words you are going to write. I hate the idea of just people thinking about it, but the more I read this story, The Right to Write, I understand that reading and going deep into your own minds about writing is what puts you ahead of the map. No matter what kind of career you want, no matter what kind of business you're going to do, and any kind of story you are going to tell. Let's talk about how to tell stronger stories. Stronger stories come from our own mindset. We have to be able to physically get into deep emotions to tell some sort of story. I often suggest a happier one, which is why I value self-improvement stories that document people's lives. I've seen this split between fiction and nonfiction because of how those stories are told. We often see fiction be this vast and overly complicated world, while nonfiction just gets straight to the point. Either way, they both do the same thing, sometimes one more than the other. I hate the idea that you should focus on self-improvement over, let's say, fiction or novels. This is important when it comes to writing because as the author, you are telling this story. Whether it is real or not, you should understand what makes a good, strong story. To break that idea down, let me tell you this. A strong story is all about how you perceive it. That's why I spent a good while talking about this first part of the video, how to use writing in everyday life. We have to understand that our writing in everyday life is determined by the stories we form. To tell these stronger stories, we have to implement them in everyday experiences. It's not about just going off the whim and seeing what it works and what doesn't, but it's to sit back and to view the world, expand your mind as this open, out-of-body touch, if that makes sense. And when we view it in that lens, our stories become mentally sharper and physically stronger. I want you to think about that statement for a fact, as we know that stronger stories engage people, whether for art, business, or success. It doesn't matter what kind, just people have to follow your order. That's why I value my storytelling so much in every single one of these videos, as I want you guys to feel what I'm feeling. I want you guys to follow what I'm thinking, and I want you guys to understand that there is something out there, something greater than yourself that you probably don't realize. To tap into this world of writing, whether you love it or hate it, needs to come from a genuine place of heart. And as a high school student, I'm telling you, there are illiterate people, the average, the 50% I say, they don't know what they're doing, and when they try to think hard, they don't understand it. That is seen as a bad thing. At the same time, it's also seen as something celebrated because of how neglectful our youth is. It's so easy to forget that we can write something physical or read something physical when we have pens and papers all around us. I want you to know that all kinds of writing matters. All medias of writing, for that matter, matters. It doesn't matter what kind of writing you are going to do, whether you have it like a physical journal like me, or see the examples of my stories down below. I made plenty of videos talking about how to write a book or how to journal stronger. But coming from a video like this one, my writing advice for both is to go with the flow. Obviously, build a plan. What kind of structure are you going to build upon it? It's good to build the skeleton of your idea, because when you write it in just one single flow, it's not as detailed. Why I still stand by go with the flow, however, you will craft a stronger story. Once again, it doesn't matter what kind of story it is. We can look at the best examples of fiction and nonfiction here. All of these books changed my life one way or another, and I've learned so much valuable information, even if it includes degeneracy or negative aspects that we don't want to talk about. It's bad enough to indulge in that negative sphere, but by watching a video like this, your attention span is so much sharper than most. Your focus is what drives you through this video. And that is one of the greatest aspects to write. I can talk on and on, but it's not until you put your fingers on little words or to type it away with your thoughts running on a treadmill that isn't too fast or isn't too slow. It's a tumultuous moment, but a good moment at that. And that moment of time is what gives you the power to tell any and all kinds of stories you want. With this video, I've talked about how you can implement writing into your day-to-day life. Use it as an average part of every little sphere, like a routine, to go back to writing each and every day and to tell a stronger story based on what kind of medium you want. You have to build the skeleton first, but to do that, you have to build the idea. Overloading the sacrifice is considering the downsides of writing. Writing isn't perfect. I may be biased, but you have to consider what kind of field you want based on the lowlights, it seems. I, for one, did not start out writing. I started out with art itself, then music, then fashion, and so many different spheres. With how easy it is to make money online, and with the many areas of this social media platform, you could do anything for that matter and still sell, which is why I still choose reading above all. Going back to earlier of this video, the $1 million person I want to be is still a writer. By the end of the day, I want to tell stories, both of myself, the experiences I went through, and fictional worlds. I want you to know this because you can have an infinite array of themes and areas to tell. And that is what creates originality. By building this success, you have to overload the sacrifice. But what do we mean by overloading the sacrifice? This is where my final tidbit of information is, and what makes me say I am the healthiest writer of all time. Healthy is what makes us drive forward. It doesn't matter where the motivation comes from, but it's the desire to change. It's the desire to be healthier, mentally healthier, or physically healthier. That's why we work out, get good sleep, and sometimes even eat good food like meat and fruits. It's how we push ourselves to be more intricate in every little detail we do. And by knowing that, our sacrifice of the work we are doing becomes less and less a sacrifice and more things to look forward to. There was a time when I was journaling back in October in which I just stopped. I spent a few days not doing anything about it, and it plagued my mind for so long. I physically couldn't stop looking at my journal, but I didn't know what to write. As such, I just sat there waiting. It was boredom, and I eventually went back to scrolling and doing all the bad habits you can imagine. But then I sat with the thought, and being able to sacrifice dopamine, this feeling of a rush and this excitement, all for boredom, is what made me write. Once again, creativity comes from originality. Let's put it at that. Creativity comes from many things, but it's often originality. Originality comes from introspection, and introspection comes from our minds. If we want to have sharper principles, then we need to sacrifice what we know. Sacrifice the good and know the bad. Sacrifice what you usually do to start writing. And if you want to take this path seriously, then overload that sacrifice as hard as possible. Do as much writing as you want. Do as much work as you need. And when you get to that point where you just written enough, the weight off your shoulders will be a greater release than you could possibly imagine. It's a lot to think about, but in terms of writing, writing is bigger than just the words we put onto a paper or the words we put onto a computer. Rather, it's the words I'm saying to you. And I hope you can use this information, not even as a school thing, but just to write. The right to write is real. And with social media and AI, let's combat this fight so that we can tell better stories. I hope you enjoyed today's video. While a long one, I'm passionate about this work, and I hope I convinced you to start writing an idea or jotting a few experiences down. It doesn't have to be a full-on fictional story, but like these books here, they all sell for different reasons. Some of it is just the advice we give. Some of it is the passions we follow, and some of it is just fiction and nonfiction. I want you to consider what you love and what you do in everyday life. And when you spend that time to journal it during your free periods or hell, write it down on a laptop, your life will change forever. I hope you can use this well, and until next time, keep on reading, keep on writing, and take care.